Coming up on OTH, Raymond and I talk about the playoff series going on around the world from LCK to EU LCS, as well as the playoff games from this past weekend, including C9 versus 100 Thieves and TL versus EG. We hope you enjoyed this episode of On the Hunt. Welcome everybody to episode 52 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I'm your co-host Chris, aka the lifelong loner, because I still try to use my student discount anywhere that I can, dude.
Okay, I thought when you said loner, I was thinking like you were gonna say like I'm never gonna find a partner,
Oh,
like
I
I'm
meant
gonna
learner.
die alone. Okay, learner.
Learner.
All right, got you.
We're good. But what you said is also true, but right now, that's for another episode.
True. Save that one.
But yeah, dude. Actually, you know who's really anal about like checking about your student status? Two people actually. One is Adobe.
Okay.
The other one is Spotify. Spotify are extra anal about making sure that a year after you graduate, you don't get to pay student prices anymore.
Yeah. That happened to me. Well, for me, it was like I graduated like the date was like maybe like December 15th or something was like when I walked basically, and then my Spotify subscription, like I made sure to renew my Spotify subscription like the day before. So like I got the full like one more year of like Spotify student for like renewing right then. It was great.
Yeah, that's the
But
right
yeah,
way to do
then
it.
it was just the 1 year and then I had to pay again.
Dang. And you can't really mooch off anyone else either. They're pretty anal about that too.
Yeah.
Lots of anal today. But so shout out to Apple and Amazon for being the friendliest people who don't check your student status, to my understanding. And don't check me.
At least you haven't got kicked off yet.
Yeah.
Now that you're saying this, dude.
I'm on the record.
Now you gotta just like throw in right here, like, oh no, by the way, I'm still a student. Like, yeah, for sure, I still go to school. We're good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
I'm the lifelong learner. That's how it works.
True. Yeah.
And
there you go.
joining me on this episode is our other co-host Raymond. What's happening, Captain?
Just more of the same for the most part. Been having some stuff going at work and just playing some games here and there.
What kind of games?
I
saw you've been playing like two main games for like the past week.
Yeah, so like last week, I think I saw. Do you know who Germa is, the streamer?
I do not.
Okay, well, I was watching the streamer and he was playing this game called PictoPix, which I guess is like a.
It sounds like Pokemon Snap, but like.
It does kind of, right? But I guess the game is like basically there's like it's like a puzzle called like Picross, which is like it's kind of like Sudoku.
You got my interest.
And yeah, so it's kind of like Sudoku. You get like this grid of squares, and then along the rows and columns, it has like numbers next to it. So like you'd have like a 5x5 grid, and like on one row it might say like 2 and 2, which would tell you that there's two groups of two squares highlighted in that row. And like it's like that across like the whole puzzle, and then like you have to be able to like deduce and figure out which squares are supposed to be filled in. And then like in this one it like makes a picture, like by the end of it it's like pixel art stuff based off of like what squares you fill in. So it's very addicting. That's what I'll say. Like I've it's one of those like I don't know, I get sucked into puzzle games like that, just in general. So it's like I'll open it up and it's like, oh, I'll just do one or two and then go to bed, and then it's like, oh, I'll just do one more because that one was fast. And then you get to one and I get stuck on the puzzle, and then next thing I know, it's taking me like 45 minutes to do this puzzle, and then it's like shit.
Those kind of games are the worst. When when one round is like 3 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And you could just do infinite of them for like 15 minutes, and then 15 turns to 30, and then 30 turns into 2 hours. So I definitely know that feeling with a bunch of random games. So is that just it's not an online game, right?
No, it's just a single player thing, like puzzle game. It's on Steam. It's only like $6 or something. So
for sure,
I was in. But yeah, between that and I've been playing some League here and there, but nothing crazy.
What was the other one? You're playing like Tinytina something. Is that a Borderlands thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the new Borderlands game. It's like D&D based. Like you're in the Borderlands universe, but like somebody is DMing basically a Dungeons and Dragons game. And so you're playing Borderlands. It's like Borderlands style, like the game, but you're in like this like kind of fantasy version world of it. It's kind of fun. I like it.
Oh.
I'm a sucker for Borderlands games too, so
Yeah, I only ever really played the second one, like full all the way through, and yeah, I loved that game. That was probably like
yeah.
2011 or 2012, and then
Yeah, that was definitely like the most like the biggest version of those games, I feel like biggest installment.
yeah,
A ton of people played that one.
and then I think I tried to play the next one that was like the pre-sequel or something like that, and I never finished
Hmm.
it. But those games are definitely like better to play with somebody else rather than with yourself.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right, let's talk some League of Legends, my brother. Not much else
Heck
before
yeah,
we get
man.
into last week's playoff games. There was like an episode with Double Lift, LS, and Joe Marsh that came
Joe
out.
Marsh.
Yeah, and that was a pretty fun listen. And then yeah, pretty much other than that, not much else has come out in between last week and this week.
Yeah, I think I've just seen. I mean, we're still kind of like on a weird patch cycle, right? Or now we're back to normal. Like, so I think there were like pre-patch notes this week, the patch previews this week, but we'll wait until that hits the true patch to talk about that one, I think.
Yeah, and then I guess if you want to talk about any other regions first, I think LCK concluded. So T1 are the victors over there, and who will be going to MSI. And we were talking before the show if there is an MSI, nudge nudge. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see. I've only heard rumblings at this point. I wouldn't get too worried about it until like anything official happens, whether it's you know only some regions can go or it's online or what. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but undefeated in match games, 20-0 the full way through. Pretty cool, dude.
Yeah, dude. It was like I think the finals was kind of interesting. It sounded like I because it's LCK and I don't have a degenerate sleep schedule. I can't watch the finals games. I think I tried to stay up and like watch the opening ceremony, but the problem with that was that like the opening ceremony started at 1
Oh,
and
Jing.
then that took another like 20 minutes, so it was like by the time a game started, it was like already 1:30. I'm like, fuck, no, dude, I have to go to bed. Um, but from the sound of it, it was like not as dominant as you would have expected from how hype T1 had been. But I mean, it's the next best team in the league, right? Like you'd hope it's a closer series than the day-to-day regular season stuff. And their last series was a weird one where a bunch of Gen G guys were out like during the regular season, right? Because of COVID stuff.
Yeah.
So
And speaking of which, it came out
yeah.
after that T1 players tested positive and may or may not have been feeling well even during that match, which is kind of crazy, but they still ended up winning.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it's like that's not actually anything like fucked up where they like made them go play with COVID and then got other players sick or people there or anything else. That would suck.
Yeah, that would be a whole other rabbit hole to jump into.
Yeah, yeah.
How about EU
But yeah,
LCS? I think there's some interesting matches going on over there, but I don't really watch much of it.
yeah, I think last week was like their second round kind of. They follow a similar pattern to the LCS now where it's like they have an upper bracket and like a winners game and then like the lower bracket like matchups and stuff. So I think they're basically on the same trajectory, but like maybe a week ahead of what the LCS is right now. Um, so G2 played against Vitality for like the first like elimination game, and they 3-0'd Vitality. It was like the super team with Perks and Alfari and Selfmade, and they kind of just like I don't know, they crumbled. G2 had two games where they looked like really good, and then game three, Vitality kind of finally had a lead. It wasn't like a super strong lead, but they had a lead, and then they made a very questionable dive that was like past the bot lane tier 2 tower, and they just gave away shutdowns and shit like that, and got chased down and lost all their momentum, and G2 walked to a clean 3-0. So Vitality is eliminated. Um, and then Fnatic had a series against Rogue where they went up 2-0 and then Rogue reverse swept them. So the Rogue is going into the finals, I think, off of that match. guaranteed, and Fnatic is going back down to place G2 in the third place match this week. I think. By maybe I look up the schedule to make sure, but that was a pretty hype series too. Rogue had been, kind of they'd had some curses about like coming so close to losing and that kind of stuff, or coming so close to winning LEC in the last year, and then
Yeah.
uh, coming so close to losing this time, but pulling off the reverse sweep is pretty hype for them.
Yeah, that's super hype for them. And I did end up catching like some of the G2 Vitality games, and it just looked like G2 was smashing them. So pretty excited to see G2 and Fnatic rematch again because I think they already played before.
Yeah, I think they were the first playoff series.
Yeah, one of the first, if not the first. And so
Yeah.
we'll see if Fnatic can just make their way back to the grand finals and see if they can beat Rogue or if anyone can beat Rogue.
Yeah, true. I mean, it seems like that. Yeah, whatever finals that'll be, I think will be a close one because I don't think Rogue is like untouchable by any means for sure. Like they've had close series on their way here, so good, good to look forward to.
All right, now let's go ahead and talk about some LCS. We had two playoff matches start off the spring playoffs this past weekend. Let's just start off with the Saturday games of C9 versus 100 Thieves, which I actually found all three games to be really exciting, especially game two. But this was a 3-0 over 200 Thieves. So how do you want to kick off this conversation about C9 versus 100 Thieves?
Um, I don't know, dude. I like. I mean, is there?
My angle is I'm really
What are your
excited to
first
see.
impressions?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see 100 Thieves like uh, back in form, so to speak, where like
Yeah,
they look like they're
yeah,
in totally good shape of how they were in the summer playoffs when you were just watching them. You're like, holy crap, this they could probably win the whole thing actually. Just like, but based off of it was kind of like the way when TL like really exploded into the playoffs last summer. Like watching them in this series kind of gave me that same feeling of like, oh wait a second, we were doubting them in the regular season, and then now they're just like here to play in the playoffs, and I really liked what I saw out of them.
yeah. I mean, big agree. Like, it definitely felt like they had the right game plan going into this series. I think some of that probably comes from being
Can I jump in here too?
the
Like the right game
yeah.
plan in
Go
terms
go.
of like, I can't believe that like this kind of like Reddit lurker silver player strategy of just like ban top champions, camp summit, win the game. Question step 3 question mark, step 4 profit. Like that actually works, man.
Yeah,
What the hell?
yeah. I mean, it is kind of wild. I feel like there's a certain amount of like it shouldn't have worked this well. Like even if it like will keep Summit down. Like even if they had won 3-0 and it was like because they kept Summit out of the game and he couldn't carry, like that doesn't even begin to describe like how bad Summit was shut down by their strategy in this series.
Yeah.
Like it was
Actually,
it
I
was
was
kind of
7-0 in the
embarrassing.
first game.
Yeah, like it was actually kind of embarrassing for like how well he had been playing the rest of this split. To be in like MVP talks, and he might still win MVP, right? And like to go out in your first playoff series like this bad was kind of just I don't know, eye opening about like how C9 as a team plays the game. But yeah, I mean like I feel like part of 100 Thieves being the championship like returning champions roster, a lot of their stuff like they already know how to play together, right? Like the basics of the game you kind of get. I feel like that makes it easier to go into like a playoff series like this where you had a week of preparation and can like really dial in on like how are we supposed to just win these three games against this one team. Like that helps a lot in being able to execute on a strategy like that rather than being a team like C9 who's only 9 or so weeks into playing together anyway. And then you got to figure out like not only like do we not maybe 100% know how we want to play as a team, but how do we want to play in this playoff series, and all that is like just multitudes of levels of complexity.
Yeah, and then continuing off of their C9's regular split performance, the last weekend of the regular split, they had lost a couple of games, and then moving into this first playoff match, they lose all three games. are you worried about C9 having, dropping down into the lower bracket?
I think I think I'm definitely more worried like right now than I would have been if you told me like last week, like, oh, C9's gonna lose like to 100 Thieves. Like you don't tell me the three, you don't tell me how it happens. You just say C9's gonna lose to 100 Thieves. I'm like, that's fine. They'll bounce back in lowers,
I
right?
see.
Like
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
they'll at least have a way back. But this was like a bad series. And you
Yeah,
don't have that much time to figure shit out. Like I think I heard I think Peter Dunn called into Hotline League this week and like talked a little bit about this. But like it's pretty likely, that C9 lost 100 Thieves last week, right? Like in week 9,
right.
in the regular season. And so you kind of like you probably play that match and like that's the like you have that so fresh in your mind and you don't have other scrim data because you probably weren't scrimming them in the weeks leading up to that. You're not going to scrim them in this week. So like that's the only kind of stuff you have to go off of and you're like, well, we can't play like that because that was bad. So let's figure out somewhere else like some other way that we can strategize for the playoffs. And they came up with like this Renekton, like this comp was probably whatever they decided is the best comp
Oddly,
in
yeah.
right. Like that's what they must have figured out in scrims this week. Like this is either the best that works for us or the best like that we have into 100 Thieves particularly or something, and like they were just like 100% down to run it in those first two games, and it was, I don't know, that part it doesn't make sense to me. It's surprising to see them be so inflexible with a comp that like isn't even doesn't even seem that good on paper. You know, it's like it feels like you just kind of pick like Zeri Renata is like great. You're picking 2022 champs. Fudge on Rise probably feels comfort, and then Renekton is gonna win lanes for Summit probably because he's Summit, and Flabber can just go camp him and dive with Diana damage. Like I don't know, it didn't look good. The team that 100 Thieves drafted into it looked godlike against it. Like the Victor outranged everything. Ornn was unkillable. Closer could camp top the whole time and like neutralize Renekton. Like it seemed so bad in this scenario, and then they go and draft it 2 games in a row. It was just like Jesus Christ, C9 is doomed. Like they're not going to be able to figure out anything to do. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just kind of a mess of a series. So I feel like that kind of all that together makes me feel less confident about them going into a match against Golden Guardians who gets to watch all this, and has spent the last 2 weeks. Like last week, they probably practiced thinking a similar strategy would work, and then this week they get to practice knowing that that strategy would work, and like getting to come up with like whatever else might show up out of C9, like in adaptation. So like we'll see how it ends up. But I'm not feeling high on C9 stock at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not feeling high either. I will give them credit for the run back because that game two was probably one of my most favorite games that whole weekend, or and maybe of the whole spring split so far, because that one was pretty competitive both ways, and I really liked how both teams ended up playing their teams the way that they did. And at some points in this series, Berserker did look really great, and I'm glad that he's playing well him individually. But yeah, I think the rest of the players, something's got to get into help them whip into shape or something like that, because I don't know what was going on with Winsome sometimes. Like I remember this part in game 3 where he's playing Leona and they just like kill him in bottom river. And then there's like another part later in that game where like he goes to stop their recalls and there's like 3 people waiting there for him to do that. And so
Yeah.
something was not quite right there. For possibly like all of the C9 players, but I'm just happy to see 100 Thieves also play well, and so I'm more excited for that, and then also
Yeah.
worried for Cloud9, and so I'm pretty hyped to see 100 Thieves play again, which is in 2 weeks actually. They don't even play next week.
Yeah, it is that part is kind of weird to me that you get such a long break, but like yeah, it'll be I feel like definitely the bigger takeaway from this is that 100 Thieves looked really good even if C9 looked really bad because they do in a way C9 has a chance to prove themselves better, right? But 100 Thieves for now is just like they're going to have these whole 2 weeks where we're like 100 Thieves is probably the tournament favorite for spring playoffs.
Yeah, suddenly I think they're my favorite right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything
We
else
will
about
see. We will see.
anything else about
Go ahead.
Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves?
Um, I don't know. Not I just don't pick like Renekton and then for AP damage. Like that's like probably good strats for your Clash team just to not do that, and you'll better chance at winning games.
Alrighty. Let's go ahead and move on to TL versus EG, which started off how I thought that whole series would go, where it was a pretty one sided game for TL. And then EG was able to bring it back in game two, which is fine. And then TL took game three. And then EG made it extremely interesting by stomping TL in game four. And I was sweating buckets and like waiting for game five, thinking like TL could actually probably lose here. After us thinking that it was probably going to be a 3-0 or a 3-0. So we could start back at the beginning, but what were your thoughts on the TL versus EG series as a whole, or however you want to approach this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tuned into this series probably like after the first game because I remember listening to like casters talk in like game two about like, oh, Core's not playing Halo Blades Tom Kench, which he got to run over the first game with. So I don't think I saw the Halo Blades Tom Kench win game one. But yeah, I mean this series felt like a lot like it was TL just having like this like really veteran like mental fortitude kind of like never feeling down or out of the series. You know, like even when with the games going back and forth, even with EG having some pretty convincing wins, you know, it was like TL is always like they knew how to find the next step to win either the game that they're playing, like if they were like if it was close or they were behind, or like being able to move on to the next one. Um, like even like I think game four was probably like the perfect example. Like game four was a super hype game because it was I don't know, EG was just forcing like everything. Like they went in this game and they picked Rise for Impact and Lucian for JoJo, and they lane swapped so that they had the better matchup. So the JoJo PN's playing Lucian into Gangplank, which is like the counter because of the barrel, like you win the barrel mini game almost always, and then he just is playing this like as a super like I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna shut down Popo, like you know that like that's how you play the lane. It's like a super lane bully. Rises or Impact's playing mid Rise against Bjergsen, win like doing fine, winning lane right, like and Danny and Vulcan, like Danny has 16 kills at the end of this game. Like they were just like it was nonstop fighting. EG was like pushing and pushing and pushing and like making them skill check at every moment. Um, but like TL, even in this game, TL like knew. I think like at some point, I think they felt so far behind, and their comp was like not very comebackable. Like because like Ashe does no damage, Victor from Vine does no damage. You're playing J4 Nautilus and a GP who like is never going to get to the items needed to carry. Um, so it was just sad like to watch as these fights some of these fights would play out and TL would like look for a flank and they'd take forever to kill one guy, and then by the time they killed them and they were already kind of chunked and split up, and then the rest of EG would collapse and just like slaughter them.
Uh huh.
But it felt like TL was making the right plays, but just were nowhere near as close to being able to win based on numbers. So that felt like they still knew what they were doing, right? They still had the right ideas, and they were just had thrown it away in the early game too fast. And then the other games that TL did win, it just felt like, yeah, they're playing better, just like overall, um, like across the map. Like Bjergsen getting Ari is like proving to be a hard dub automatically, kind of. I don't know. It was a very interesting series from the ups and downs of it, I guess.
Yeah, it really did illustrate Evil Genius's ups and downs that they've had all season, and then but I'm really glad that they got to show some really good highs in this series against Team Liquid, um, in two games, and then kind of made the fifth game questionable at the start, but then as it lulled on, it would actually I would say up to like 25 minutes it was pretty sketch either way of like which team could win. But I kind of enjoyed this series as well, it going all the way to game five. And so my question to you is, we're really high on 100 Thieves. Are you worried about Team Liquid at all?
Um, I think that I'm I'm still high on Team Liquid, but like it's hard to say because I kind of almost want to say that based off this weekend that like C9 was the worst team of the four, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know if that's just the matchup, like the matchups they had, but it felt like they played like just like seemed the most inflexible, the least like skilled at their like particular game plan,
Yeah,
even
as a
that
team.
they yeah that like I just don't see C9 winning a series against like any of the other three top four teams, at least last weekend. So I feel like this series between EG and TL is probably it's a very like clearly the two teams have distinct like very clashing styles. Like EG being the we're gonna just go fucking nuts with our Zoomer carries of JoJo and Danny, and TL being like we're all probably 40 and have played this game for 10 years and can do like whatever we want. Like we're chill. We know we're gonna win. Like if that feels like a very big clash, which means like it seemed like the series was like very back and forth because of that. Like it's almost coin flippy. Um, but I think that TL, even though it was close, I think that just means that like that's kind of the way the matchup goes almost. It's that like it's the top lane matchup where you play like Fiora Camille and it's like whoever gets the first blood is just gonna roll it. But like the other team could have got the first blood and then also been the one to roll it. It just kind of rolled that way. The coin flipped heads in this series and it could have been tails on a different day. So I think TL still seems really good. And I feel like their adaptability and the way Core talked in like the post game about like yeah like when they asked him something like how did you know how to do like this freeze thing, like he was playing Alistar and headbutted a caster minion out of the tower
Yeah.
range and like that froze the next wave and he was like and Hai asked him like when did you learn how to do this technique, and then Core asked him like what game was this in and Hai goes game 3 and he's like yeah I learned it in game 3. Hansama just told me that I could do that and it took me a second to process it and then I realized what he was saying, and then I did it, and then it was like, Jesus, dude. Like, I feel like just everybody on that team is so smart and like collected and can think about the game at like that like high of a level. Like, I feel like they just have such like it's not talent. Like they have a lot of talent, but they just have such good knowledge about like everything surrounding the game beyond just like I'm good at like the clicking part or the drafting part or
Uh-huh.
whatever. Like that I think that there's a lot of like potential for the TL team.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. If they're not the strongest team, then they might be the second strongest team out of the four that played last weekend. And then yeah, a match between them and Team and 100 Thieves, I mean, what's is still going to be really exciting. So I'm still looking forward to it, despite this kind of result of going to game 5 games and it looking a bit scary for Team Liquid at sometimes.
Yeah, like I feel like the matchup between those two teams will be like I think 100 Thieves probably is better right now and might have the stronger strategies, but I think that if TL can figure out like a way, like if they can come up with some way to counter it, like Bwipo has the Scion pick or the Gragas pick that nobody else is playing top lane, or Bjergsen's going to be playing Veigar and nobody else is playing Veigar. Like if they have these kind of like strategies to counter whatever 100 Thieves wants to do, or bring them down a level, then I think that they still have a good chance in that matchup when it comes in a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now. Anything else about TL versus EG?
Um, No, I think we said it pretty much. What we wanted to say is like I feel like EG had a really good series. Like even though they lost this one, I feel like this is like a really good sign for this EG team who like kind of had a middling like regular season's performance after like how high they seemed like they could have been, how much hype there was around like the JoJo and Danny pairing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would say that this series really displayed it. And we can go ahead and move, as we move into this weekend's playoff games, we can go ahead and talk about them first. Even though they're the Sunday game, they'll be Evil Geniuses versus FlyQuest. And, suddenly I'm actually a little excited about this because FlyQuest was looking pretty okay throughout the spring split. And then although they ended up faltering to Evil Geniuses in the tiebreaker match and ended up at fifth place. Now there's these two teams who were similar in the standings, and then Evil Geniuses showed that they could be really good. So I'm looking forward to see how Evil Geniuses is going to show up again.
Yeah, I think you're right. This should be a good matchup. I feel like in this like kind of style, though, I'm worried for FlyQuest that EG might just try to do the same thing and like make the game really fast paced and really skirmish heavy, and just kind of like hands check them like out of the series. Um, but I don't know. I'm not too worried that FlyQuest is just gonna like roll over and die. They probably have some tricks up their sleeve.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Maybe EG can have one really strong game, but otherwise, I think that most of these games are going to have a fair start for like the first 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. I think you're right. And yeah, there probably will be one game at least where there's some like Lucian mid pick or they do this lane swap thing again and punish like Kumo or somebody like pick someone on FlyQuest and punish them. But I don't know. It shouldn't be. I don't think it'll be a horrid matchup at all for
Yeah, for
FlyQuest.
either side.
They got a chance.
But I would say that I am favoring EG after seeing their play and then the wealth of strategies that they were pulling out against TL as well.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Probably, honestly, I'd probably give it like a good chance that it's a 3-0 EG, but that might just be too hype on how they played this
For
weekend.
sure. Anything else about EG versus FlyQuest or EG at all?
No, I think I'm
Okay, and then
good.
the
That's all I got.
last series that will be taking place this weekend is Cloud9 up once again versus Golden Guardians. And we talked about earlier about being worried
Yeah.
about C9. And yeah, I'm a little worried too, but I'm excited to see that they're coming up first. And I don't know, do you think that they'll be able to shore up the different kinds of issues that they were having from the draft and then throughout the game as well?
I hope so. I don't know. They have a whole week to come up with at least one other draft. Like there's a chance that the draft that they really wanted to pick will work against the Golden Guardians. So maybe they can run that again and still get at least a win, but hopefully they come up with something else. Because it just doesn't seem that solid of a strategy. Like clearly it was able to be dismantled by 100 Thieves.
Yeah, and then do you think that like 100 Thieves is really good and then Golden Guardians is like a lower echelon of an opponent that C9 can probably handle at a normal power level? Or are you worried that Golden Guardians could actually take the series here?
You know, I'm pretty like high on Golden Guardians in this matchup, I think. Um to me it seems like Licorice is not like a similar player to Someday, but like I think he will still have a good chance in like the Summit matchup, like to be able to match them if they want to go with the same idea that 100 Thieves showed him of like just blasting the top lane with pressure and ganks and like challenging him in like matchups and draft or something. Like I think Licorice can do that. We saw him play like the Fiora into Tryndamere matchup. I'm sure that Licorice can play something into Renekton if they do really still want to force Renekton, right? Like he seems like we know him as like an NA like MVP level talent kind of in the top lane. So I think he could show that into Summit and still I still want to throw this out there that Golden Guardians has Pride Soccer who was a Rengar main and we still haven't seen any Rengar in competitive since the changes, but NA is the only patch I guess that's on or only region that's on 12.6 and there's a Rengar main in playoffs. So like we could see Prize Soccer pull that out as like another like a must ban kind of thing for C9, which could throw the draft a lot too. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's probably a decent matchup for Cloud9 too, or for Golden Guardians into Cloud9 that they have guys who can like kind of probably pass the hand checks and
Hand checks.
and have shown yeah and have shown to be a decent team like throughout the split like they've had their moments they've taken down TL so I'm sure they could take down C9.
Yeah, and like you were saying, they got some time to observe C9 and see their gameplay and possible points of attack. So I can't really say either way actually who I would even favor. So, but I also wouldn't say that I'm looking forward to this matchup in particular. I think I would rather watch the EG FlyQuest series if I had to pick one. Um, but I think it could be interesting, this C9 versus Golden Guardians matchup.
Yeah. Who do you think? Okay, you said you're not favoring anyone hard, but like you got to make a call in the series. Who do you think's gonna win?
Ooh, man, I feel like it would be a little foolish to say Cloud9 will lose just because they got 3 out this week. It's going to be a whole different opponent that they're going up against. And
Yeah.
and with that, that's going to come with a whole new set of drafting strategies and then weakened strong points throughout the map. So just because Cloud9 got 3 out and looked kind of silly in 2 of the games, they did have, you know, clearly Summit and Berserker still have, the best hands in the West. So they still have, really strong parts about their team and really experienced players like Blabber and Summit and Fudge.
So C9.
So C9 for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll be the foolish one, and I think it's gonna be Golden
Okay.
Guardians. I don't know. I feel like it's the opportunity. Like this is the one time that you can like make the play to take down C9 in the playoffs. So I'm I've got some confidence. I've got some
Yeah.
confidence. It'll be close though. It'll be like a 3-2
I would say
if
I
they
wouldn't
do
be
make
mad if
it.
you like put $100 on Golden Guardians. I would be like, all right, that's fair.
Right.
If there was any
There's
time,
value
yeah.
there. There's
If there was
value
any
there.
time it could happen, yeah, it could happen here.
I
All
believe
right.
it.
Anything else about the playoff series taking place this weekend?
I don't think so. I don't know. Actually, I had one thing that I wanted to get your opinion on, and it's not directly related to the playoffs, but it is kind of informed by like we talked about we talked about in LEC that the Vitality Super Team already lost, right? They got kicked out, and now this TL team, who's another super team, like for sure, is like kind of picking up steam. And I feel like I wanted to point out, or like I think this TL team is like the perfect super team is what I would say. Like they've got all these guys that don't have egos, or like at worst like Bwipo is their like biggest ego guy, and the rest of the team is like no ego, like in terms of like what it seems like for them to work together. um, and I feel like they're just so like what's the word, like intellectual about the game, like in the way that they approach it and look to improve on it and all this stuff. And it just feels like this TL super team is like the best iteration of a super team that we've kind of seen in the West for a while that I can remember. Just the way that it seems like they all are able to work together and like continue to improve as a team throughout the split.
I can follow your points there, and I don't know too much about Han Sama, like who he is like as a player. But I would say that yeah, I would think that of Santorin, Bjergsen, and Core JJ, they're pretty cool minded and think about the game in a way that's like they can get past like hurt points. What I mean is like if they had a bad game, then they wouldn't be like shouting at each other after the match, and or like they would have to have like a 6 hour cooldown time before they could have a productive conversation. I think they could
Right.
accurately pinpoint. Okay, I think we had some issues here. We could do this to solve it next time. Maybe a couple of back and forths in between those 2 steps. But I'm pretty much with you there. Of like this is probably like a really level-headed team, and as well as just really great players who have a great prestige throughout their careers and a long built career as well. So I really do like this pairing of like Bwipo with Bjergsen and Core JJ, and I'm glad to see him here in the NA LCS. And I think that as far as Bwipo and Hansama coming here to TL, the only two I wouldn't be worried about like them doubting Core JJ, and then if anything, I would think that maybe they would have to have some worries about Santorin or Bjergsen, but then I would tell them Santorin's just our top 2 jungler for like the last year, maybe even 2 years. So you're
Yeah.
here in the
Yeah.
LCS with one of the most consistent junglers in the last 2 to 3 years. And then I would say it's fair that maybe you could still pick Jensen over Bjergsen, as in terms of like building the super roster, so to speak. But even on that point, I still really like the TL 2019 roster with Jensen, Doublelift, Core JJ, Impact, and what was it? Still like Smithy? Yeah, because they ended up beating IG,
So
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I still really like that roster in terms of like I wouldn't say that's the perfect super team, because I think I see what you're saying about like the current TL roster being like the best super team constructed thus far, but that was also like one of the bestest teams, the 2019 roster that NA has ever put together, I would say.
That's true, and that's I think that's fair. It's probably too early to say this like as any definitive thing. Like I'm not gonna say you're wrong if you wanted to say the 2019 TL team was also like really fucking good, right? Um, and it's only spring split. Like they've won one playoff series and it was 3-2. But that's just I don't know. It's one of those. It's like an impression I'm getting of how they're all kind of playing together and the stuff of like the stuff we're hearing about the team uh, in
Yeah,
surrounding
and I haven't seen like Team
interviews and that kind
Liquid
of stuff.
squad or anything like that this season, but I'm sure that they have a really great, or I would be confident they have a really great environment going on over there in terms of team. And
Yeah,
I don't know if they bond at all. I don't know if after scrims, Buppo goes home and FaceTimes his girlfriend for 10 hours. I don't know, but
right.
I like
I
this
think,
team top
yeah,
top to bottom.
yeah. I feel like they're also giving a very good name for like veteran players, like old players, to like continue in the league. Because I don't know, I feel like every year you get that conversation of like how is too old, how old is too old to play league, and like we have to get rid of boomers. Like Afro Moon needs to retire. These guys, like those kind of things. Like just circle and circle, and I feel like this is a bunch of players who are maybe Hans is the youngest one, right? Like not all of them are super long into their careers, but the guys that are like between the Bjergsen and Santorin and Core that are all these like super veterans of LCS at this point. um I feel like they're proving that you can still be at least like 24, and be a really good player in the LCS.
Yeah, and like you said, the breadth of knowledge that all of these players have as a whole, it keeps, even if like their hands slowly deteriorate, they're still going to be at like 90% peak form, or like 90% efficiency of what might have been their peak form throughout their whole career. Just
Right.
because like as the game keeps changing, but then like they still retain all this other knowledge about like decision making in the game and matchups and just what to do, and when you have to make a split second decision about this thing or another, even if there are teleport
Hmm.
changes, even if there are level 1 changes, even if there are new champions added to the game and reworks happening here and there, I would believe them in being able to have that adaptability, because they've showed that. And a lot of them aren't like super OG players. Like Bjergsen's probably the longest standing player on this team, actually. um, and then I would say that I still think Hansama and Buppo are pretty close to like their peak form. I wouldn't think that
Right.
they like dropped off and now they're just like cashing out in NA or something like that.
Right. I mean, this is only like year 3 or 4 for either of them,
Uh
I
huh.
think, like in terms of being at the highest level. So they're definitely not like as old, anywhere near as old as those other guys, but they're not rookies either.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like this team, and you kind of took me through a trip of like having to think about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is still, I don't know. I've been impressed so far at how I don't know how they've all come together, and and seemingly pretty quickly, right? Like these are parts that haven't, like nobody on this team has played together before except for Bjergsen and Santorin, and that only kind of counts, right? Like that was 7 years ago. So I'm not giving that like too much of a pre, what's the word, a foundation to build off of, but like they're coming together really well as a team, it seems like so far, and I have a lot of hope for them to continue getting better.
I like that. I like that. All right. Anything else for this episode you want to talk about?
I think I can't think of anything else, unless we want to talk more about how bad C9 is. But I don't know, we kind of covered
No,
that
I
too.
think we bashed on them enough. All right, man. I'll go ahead and wrap this one up then.
Cool.
Okay, and that's going to be it for episode 52 of On the Hunt, a League of Legends podcast. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on the service that you're listening to us on, if you haven't already. We appreciate it if you also give us a rating or hit the like button to show us some support. You can find us on YouTube as well as your podcast player of choice, from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and so forth. We'll see you all next week for another episode of On the Hunt.
52, baby. That's a whole year.
Oh yeah, dude.